Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to Workplace Health Without Borders' third webinar on occupational heat stress this summer. This one is titled Learning from the Field and Growing Your Toolkit. It is being recorded for everyone. My name is Lisa Ciolin, and I am an assistant professor at the University of Toronto in the Dalla Lana School of Public Health in the Division of Occupational and Environmental Health. And I'm also WHWB Vice President and also convene a working group on heat stress. I'm joined by Jason Boyer, who you can't see, but is helping us technically. And also we are joined by Kate Whitke, who has an MS in Communications and a health an honors Bachelor of Science. She is a science translation and community outreach specialist with the Occupational Health Clinics for Ontario Workers, OHCOW, and also joined by Kimberly O'Connell, who's the Executive Director of Occupational Hygiene at the Occupational Health Clinics for Ontario Workers, OHCOW, as well as Emma Ashurst, who's with the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, the CCOHS, and she's the Manager of Inquiries and Technical Services. Once again, I'm going to ask everybody as you're joining to put your name in the chat, where you are and the temperature where you're at. And I'm going to ask people to please turn off their cameras if they're not speaking. The webinar today will explain heat stress through a field-based case study, and it's emphasizing the identification, evaluation, and control of heat-related hazards. It will highlight the experiences and risks faced by agricultural workers, a group that is particularly vulnerable to heat-related illness. Emma and Kim and Kate will share an array of tools and guidance from the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, the Occupational Health Clinics for Ontario Workers, and other partner organizations, as well as international resources for managing work in high heat environments. Now I'm going to turn it over to Kate, Kim, and Emma. And there will be, just so everybody know, they'll tell you there'll be opportunity for discussions, but also feel free to place comments and questions in the chat, and there will be an opportunity to discuss some of those a little bit later on. Thank you. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Can everyone hear me all right? Great.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thanks for having us from wherever you are today. And I'm noticing all the temperatures, and we hope to help you plan and get ready for all those and increase our tools. And we're starting with a narrative, and I'd be remiss. I need to give a big shout out and speak to the bio of Eduardo Huesca, who is our migrant and temporary foreign worker project manager, and has worked with our migrant and temporary foreign worker across Ontario for over 15 years with particular experience in migrant agriculture workers. He's a project manager with us at OHCOW, the Occupational Health Clinics for Ontario Workers, and currently manages 3 externally funded migrant agriculture worker projects as well with us. So this story that we're starting our narrative from the field of is not mine, but his, and those of the outreach workers and workers that we have been working with. So you can, you can advance the slide, Jason, if you wish to. We can skip the intros because we just did that and go on to the next one. So again, we'd like to begin today with a story from the field, and it's really about a gap in Ontario heat stress prevention education and resources for migrant agricultural workers. So our team, and we're going to be ebbing and flowing back and forth between all of us, our panelists today, my esteemed colleagues, and really I wanted to shout out at the beginning that this is not a technical presentation, and one where we hope it's really about information sharing. And as colleagues and partners in prevention, we hope to hear from you because we're ending with a discussion period as well, and you can share what's working for you. And so really it's about the shared learning, and you'll see that the story sort of tells that narrative as well. as we go through. So just a heads up that this is really about sharing and less technical for your appetite and preparation for today. Um, so so yeah, we had difficulty finding Ontario-based heat stress prevention related resources in accessible formats for workers in Eduardo's group, language, more visual formats um, that also more closely considered their very unique work experiences. And we were unable to find Ontario resources that included heat stress awareness and prevention information, but also provided information on what to do if workers had heat stress related concerns and where to get help. So workshops were created in English and Spanish to 500 Ontario migrant agriculture workers from Mexico and Caribbean countries. And all of these were outdoor agricultural workers. And these were presented in workers of the regions of Simcoe, Norfolk County, and Niagara, Bradford, and Durham County. And they took place really at a community level with regional events that were going on and health and information fairs organized for these workers as well at workplaces at the invitation of employers. And you can go to the next slide, if you will. So just wanting to show here, we're not going to do the justice to as Eduardo would do, but to our American friends in the North, they did pull on, and you'll see as part of a resource list that we're going to provide as a handout with the materials that there is we reached to the Cal OHCOW infographic posters and sort of inspired us and used those. And you can go to the next slide, please. And then we worked from there on what we were to develop next in the narrative. And you can go to the next slide, Jason. So in the 2012-2014 era, OHCOW delivered some heat, stress, and sun safety workshops and created another infographic or info sheet to distribute and provided workers with sunscreen and discussed use. So this is a bit of the history here. You can go to the next slide as well. And I'll hand these project descriptions over to Kate.
Perfect. Thanks, Kimberly. So to talk a little bit about these next couple slides, throughout OHCOW, we have a couple different projects and teams that directly work with the migrant agricultural workers. So since 2022, this first one is the Teamwork Project in the Western region, which is also known as Together Empowering Access for Migrant Workers Outreach, Resources, and Knowledge. So this is a program that's focused on migrant workers in the Windsor-Sarnia region, including Windsor-Essex, Chatham-Kent, and Sarnia-Lambton. And it's part of the Migrant Worker Support Program that is funded by Employment and Social Development Canada to assist temporary foreign workers in achieving fair treatment, security, and integration in their Canadian communities. And something else to note about this project is it ensures that they have access to this critical information and resources to help them navigate their work, their community services, and life in Canada in general. Next, please. So here's the outreach team. Here we have some of OHCOW's outreach team for this specific project. You can see below. Our other outreach project is TNO, the Neighborhood Organization's WSS Worker Support Services project. And so the purpose of this project is very similar to the teamwork by providing the migrant workers with accurate information to accessible services and supports, and also to assist them in learning about and exercising their rights while they're here in Canada. And so this one is funded by Employment and Social Development Canada's Migrant Worker Support Program. And this project specifically helps to fund our outreach workers with the migrant farm agricultural workers in the Ottawa, Belleville, Prince Edward County area, Simcoe, Norfolk, and the Niagara region. So here's some of OHCOW's outreach team for this project as well. So throughout these projects, and as Kimberly mentioned, with the lack of Ontario-based heat stress prevention related resources, in, again, accessible formats, whether that's more visual or language, we were able to fill that gap and create these resources for those workers. So this includes in 2023, OHCOW's Heat Stress, a serious hazard for outdoor workers infographic. So in this one, we can see that the actions that workers can take to help prevent heat stress, PPE, if you're hydrated enough, and employer responsibilities. So you can see here that this infographic is a lot more visual and it is available in 5 different languages, which isn't as common. So we have English, French, Spanish, Thai, and Tagalog. So again, through these projects, we were also able to create this next infographic, which was made in 2023, and which discusses how to stay hydrated in the heat. And this focuses on the amount of water to drink, what beverages to avoid if you're in the heat, what foods to eat during the day. And this is also available in the same 5 languages. And the last infographic that was created specifically through these was a year-round concern in greenhouses infographic. So again, this was also created in 2023 in these same 5 languages and focusing on action against heat stress for workers, PPE, employer responsibilities, all specifically in greenhouses. And back to Kimberly.
And again, pictures trying to tell the narrative and story in the field. And even better, I was trying to take a minute to put some of those links in the chat, but I'm unable to. So again, stay tuned because they will be provided with a handout. But I was trying to do that live, but I was unable to use the chat. So again, just a nice photo of the hard work that went on in 2023. And for 10 years before that, with the learnings from what the needs were, and some of this material was presented to the Mexican consulate in Leamington in this photo that you can see. In July, next slide please, of that same year in 2023, a worker working in the Niagara region contacted our regional outreach workers that Kate was speaking about to share concerns about temperatures in their employer-provided bunkhouses where they were living. So they mentioned that the temperatures being high and the housing had poor ventilation and hence poor air quality. So the outreach workers met with this worker and provided him with an Aeronet, a home monitor, and explained how to use it. And over several days, the worker measured temperature and took pictures of the monitor at peak heat stress episodes and sent them back to our OHCOW outreach team. So through ongoing engagement with migrant agriculture workers on the issue of heat stress, we continue to hear about concerns, high temperatures in their employer-provided housing. Through research, we identified other jurisdictions focusing on regulating this issue. In Oregon, the OSHA rule addressing high ambient temperatures in labor housing. Based on this experience, we decided to engage more workers in the use of the Aeronet monitors to collect further data in the summer of 2024. And these outreach teams reached to more migrant agriculture work, again, in the region of Niagara and Simcoe, Norfolk County, in the bunkhouses, and offered loans of Aeronet home to capture data on temperature and humidity every 5 minutes and monitor conditions in the bunkhouse over the summer. When a worker accepted an Aeronet, our outreach workers collected information on the worker themselves and the bunkhouse, or visited the bunkhouse and met the workers offsite with the Aeronets to download the information. You can store quite a bit of information in the Aeronet, 15 days of data. And then we have been using the SwitchBot thermal hygrometers because they have a 60-day window of 1 minute sampling that we can, and they're less expensive. So, you know, a lot of this was going on with support from our hygienists and expanding. We're planning on expanding the pilot in the 2025 season in the Ottawa region. And we can go to the next slide, please. So you can see how this narrative all comes together. And I'll hand it over to Kate. Stay with us. We go back and forth a little bit, talking about the timelines and how we got to these ideas, and hope to inspire all of us, because we're all in one community as well, when we have the discussion about sharing ideas, and we're better together. So yeah, Kate, over to you.
Thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, it's just important to note that to be effective, whether we are talking about this specific program, heat stress in general, or anything else, that these resources and worker education cannot exist in a vacuum. So they need to be part of a continued work to ensure that agricultural workplaces have effective heat stress prevention plans in place, and that they must be part of the ongoing work to include and empower migrant and temporary foreign agricultural workers in the identification of these workplace hazards, as well as in a climate that is supportive and that is free of the fear of reprisals. Next, please. And then here's some pictures to show OHCOW's Migrant Agricultural Worker Program today. So again, as Kimberly has mentioned, Eduardo is actually out in the field today doing these workshops, handing out these resources. As you can see in the bottom right corner, we have some of the different infographics I've just mentioned, and being able to see it come full circle, and very proud of the work that we're able to do. Next.
Thanks, Kate. And so the next in the story is one slide to tell a whole bunch of narrative. And I think that you'll see how we took the thread, and I often say this with our teams, right? There's so much excellent work going on and across the province for the tables that I sit on with the Occ Illness Prevention Steering Committee and, occupational illness prevention efforts with all of our system partners, including CCOHS, specifically with regard to this toolkit development. But really in this exact time in 2023, when all of this, Eduardo's amazing work with the outreach and hearing workers and being on the ground, aligned with the province looking at a standalone regulation. So we engaged with, and this is where I need to shout out, and it's not necessarily, yes, I'm very proud to be part of an amazing team, but John Odick had created a bunch of heat stress materials as well. And Eduardo's outreach team had created a bunch of heat stress materials and a calculator and information with with all the system partners back in 2009. And then the proposed regulation came on. And then we engaged Andre Gauvin, our heat stress guru, along with John, who's an ergonomist, to look at the physicality piece, along with Krosh, who looked at the physiological monitoring. And it was and right around now, the province had additional funding for prevention efforts. So we threw together a proposal to really improve the 2009 heat stress awareness guide from OHCOW, where all the system partners got together and made an amazing toolkit from that. So, and really the learning from there is that, again, we hope you can use these tools, but also that we can all come up with solutions together and really it's a lot about networking and learning from one another and shared learning. And health and safety is not a secret, and we want to tie and weave together efforts as much as we possibly can. So just so proud of that team. I have to mention Dr. Sandra Dorman, and I have to mention Toby Mankis, our colleague who helped so deeply, that we miss dearly, with some of these materials. So yeah, this is about synergies, and Kate, I'm going to hand it over to Kate now to go into depth about the toolkit. That really the Ministry of Labor helped fund. All the system partnerships came together, including CCOHS and all the folks, all the HSAs on the steering committee for Occ illness prevention to share widely. So thanks, Kate. Next slide, Jason.
And to go into a little bit more detail about the toolkit specifically, it's for a wide variety of audiences. So as you can see on the top three, we have three different guides. The first two, the awareness guide as well as the physiological monitoring guide, are more directed towards supervisors and health and safety specialists, whereas our third, prevention tools and strategies guide, is for your everyday worker. So throughout this toolkit, there's a lot of good resources that we've helped create, which includes a variety of infographics, the calculators, as Kimberly mentioned, and 3 different videos. And again, taking that gap and being able to create these and be accessible visually as well as in French and Spanish. So they have a lot of good resources in there. And with that, I'll pass it over to Emma with CCOHS to discuss some of the resources they have.
Thanks very much, Kate and Kimberly. And I have to say, I remember being in my early practitioner days and using the first iterations of the OHCOW heat stress guides and using the humidex monitoring and the guidelines for safe work in hot environments. So it's also wonderful to see the evolution of the materials and that continual improvement and enhancement of the tools. So just a little fangirl moment for the OHCOW tools there. But moving into, and also just to echo Kimberly and Kate in saying the sharing of the resources, and I've seen a couple of chat messages coming up of people sharing links, which is great. We're also working on a handout to be shared afterwards, so stay tuned for that. But please feel free to drop any links in there. We've got time, we can incorporate them into this handout. So it absolutely can be a document that we can put together for everybody, and we'll share it afterwards. So if you'd like to go to the next slide for me, please, Jason, that would be great. And as introduced, my name's Emma. I'm the manager of the technical team with CCOHS. I've been with the center for 16 years, and I started off as a health and safety specialist. We're here as the national resource in Canada for workplace health and safety materials, and look to take different health and safety topics and put together resources and different materials to help support organizations address different hazards, including working in hot environments, and also preparing materials to support workers so they know how and they can work safely in environments that are hot. So we've got two examples. We have a couple of different posters highlighting how are we looking out for heat-related illnesses. We know they can be deadly. So heat exhaustion, pardon me, and heat stroke. And like I said, all of these will be linked afterwards. So I appreciate it might be a bit blurry on your screen. We really just wanted to show a flavor of the different materials that could be used in your workplace to support this topic. Could be in a safety toolbox talk or as a committee meeting or safety minutes. And then we have another one that we've just revamped and put out on the different controls to do with keeping your cool. So, our water, our timing it, putting shade in place, scheduling, and I'll go through some controls as well in a moment. Jason, do you mind just going to the next slide for me? We also have infographics, again, highlighting those quick facts about working in hot environments and sun safety, the importance of it, and different ways to reduce the risk. So again, kind of the same messaging, but different methods of showing the content. And the next slide. We've also put together a pocket guide. Some of you may be familiar with our publication program and different topics, and we do have a working in hot environments pocket guide. And in here, we include the guidance on identifying sources of heat and completing assessments on heat exposure. And then we also include some suggestions of different types of controls, which, as I said, I'll touch on in a minute. And this is available in print and PDF. The next slide. One of the cornerstones to our website and our content is our OSH Answers fact sheets. And these are our 3 that we have on hot environments. So we've got something in general, an overview on the subject. We go into the health effects and first aid measures, and then also control measures. If you haven't seen them already, these documents are written in a very easy, plain language Q&A format that can be used again as a safety talk or safety moment in your workplace, a handout attachment to different safety moments that you have in your organization when addressing different topics. The next slide, please. So now we did so the technical team at CCOHS and Kate and Kimberly as well supported this, the gathering of some international resources. By no means exhaustive. There are lots out there, and we'd like to see what else can be added. I'm just going to highlight a couple for no other reason, just to show the around the world aspect of this. That there are resources out there, and depending on what your needs are. So is it at a work, at like an employer level? So in Australia, they've put together a checklist to manage the risk of heat in the workplace. And again, it can be adapted for your own organization. The labor unions have put together a fact sheet to help workers understand that it is an important topic and they have the right to a safe working environment. And it's not just it's hot out, it can be deadly, and it's a very important hazard for workers to be aware of. I'll actually quickly share. I'm working from home in my hybrid office today, and actually we have construction workers doing some work outside my window right now. And yesterday it was very hot in Ontario. And I appreciate we have a global audience, and if I say hot, it might not be very hot to you, but it was hot for us. And I did notice that the construction crew, they did move to indoor work, and then they actually stopped a bit earlier when it did get peak. So again, it's good to see some of these things in action. Okay, next slide, Jason. A couple more resources. So the Chinese Center for Disease Control, again, more fact sheets, again, reiterating how to do temperature readings. France has something similar. Next slide. India and Qatar, same thing. They've got the India, that's their national action plan, and it largely is focused on managing heat-related illnesses, but it's a good resource to learn about the signs and the symptoms, which will be important for when your workers are out, because buddy system is important, and I'll go into that in a minute. And again, another FAQ fact sheet for your workers. Next slide. Health and Safety Executive in the UK, they've got a checklist that can be adapted for your risk assessment, and OSHA NIOSH, they still have their heat safety tool app available. It hasn't been taken down, and that page is available to look. And again, it can be accessed and helps do measurements and track assessments. And also provides recommendations and planning moments. So those are a couple of the international resources just to highlight. And again, all different types of formats. So electronic, checklist, plain, full-blown PDFs that can be shared, all reiterating the same important message about working in hot environments. I'm going to pass it to Kimberly to talk about one more resource, and then I'll get back into it and we'll run through some controls. Kimberly?
Thanks, Emma. Can you hear me? Great. So yeah, if you want to advance to the next slide, Jason, I did want to give a big shout out to the AIJ Heat Stress app. It's a mobile app for iPhone and Android, developed through a partnership with AIHA and East Carolina University. They're using, it began for outdoor workers, but they have a version 2 for indoor workers as well. And the key technical differentiator in this app is that it focuses on the adjusted wet bulb globe temperature. So our calculator is it's based on the TLVs, and it is using the Humidex to really, it's very accessible to workers. It's very easy for we tried to translate the science. But a big shout out to our friends at AIHA, and I see that Don has done some of my work for me here, so he's including some of that in the chat. So thanks, Don. And I'll pass it back now. Oh, sorry, folks, I don't know who's next. My bad.
No,
thanks, Emma. Back to you. Okay, back to you.
Back to me. And again, we are moving through some things quickly because the large part of this presentation is hearing from you guys. And as Kimberly said, and as Kate said, it's about learning from one another as well. So we want to be able to facilitate a discussion, but we're going to just run through a few control ideas. Again, nothing groundbreaking by any means, but and then I know that there are also sometimes some debates about which buckets controls belong to, but the spirit of this is really just to share a few ideas amongst us all, and again, sharing from one another. there. So elimination, you know, it can be a little bit difficult to truly eliminate, but we could look at things as rescheduling hot work to cooler months if that's possible. So could we plan some roofing for spring and fall? And I know that technically could also be an administrative control, but in the spirit of this, we're going to eliminate that. Could you shift work outdoor tasks to cooler times of the day? As I mentioned before, that early morning and evening, as I just said about our construction crew that's going on, or could you use even remote or automated equipment? Substituting, are there other ways that we could do that? You know, could we use other work methods or replace hot tasks? So if we go to the next one, please, Jason. At the end of the day, eliminating and substituting is just trying to remove the worker from the source of it. So engineering control is part of me. So are we able to automate the task or eliminate or engineer a way to make sure that the worker isn't producing more heat? So can they use carts? Can they use lifting tools? Can they change the way that they're working to avoid creating more heat in the body and thereby potentially getting ill? Can we reduce the radiant heat emissions in the workplace? Can we put shielding in place or insulating, checking the machines to make sure that they are tuned up and, you know, there isn't a leaky valve or something that's letting off steam when it should be contained? Using ventilation and air conditioning fans to move the air, and then reducing the humidity as well. Can look at setting up shade for people, tarps, tents over the outdoor work if possible, and providing as I said, the fans or misting areas would also be an area to keep people cool. If you could go to the next one for me, please, Jason. So these are administrative controls. So we're going to change the way people work or try to change the way that work is done. And so looking at your heat stress program, that's making sure that you've planned everything out. So part of the plan would be doing your assessments, identifying your sources of heat and hot elements, uh, making sure that you are monitoring the weather for outdoor work, setting up the appropriate work plans and schedules. That also applies for indoor work, because once a building can get hot, and if you don't have appropriate cooling mechanisms, that building will stay hot. So keeping that in mind. Rescheduling work, setting up your work rest schedules, education training, making sure that workers know what to look for. Really important to put the buddy system in place so people are watching out for each other, because you might not realize that you are feeling those symptoms of the heat, and it can happen. A heat-related illness and emergency can happen quite quickly. And that's why it's really important to have an emergency plan developed and communicated so people know what to do. And your emergency plan shouldn't just be call 911. Finally, the last step, the personal protective equipment. And so providing cooling, we can go to the next slide, please, Jason. So your clothing choices, providing cooling vests or the like neck wraps, hats, appropriate clothing, eye protection, hydration packs. But with an outdoor worker, the balance is balancing that UV exposure, and like with your long sleeves and pants and cool linens, but also the heat stress prevention. So there is a balance there of what your workers would be wearing. Next slide. And then a note about acclimatization. So we often hear about that of we can become acclimatized to work. And if you work in a hot environment long enough, you get comfortable and it's totally fine. So research shows it takes about 6 to 7 days to be of continuous exposure to be fully acclimatized. And if you're away from your heat source, then you lose your acclimatization pretty quickly. So it is actually quite tricky to become truly acclimatized to a hot environment unless you are in certain climates. So that's something really important to note, that if there are breaks, that workers may not be fully acclimatized as you might think. So it's not a good idea to just rely on that as a control mechanism. There's a couple of things that can help and hinder acclimatization. So physical fitness does matter. helps with everything really, but in this case, it does help, but it's not just, that's not the be all and end all. And then it's also important to note that certain medications and health conditions can impact your ability to work in hot environments. So if you are a hot worker or a hot environment worker, pardon me, it's important to chat with your medical doctor, physician, or healthcare worker to make sure that you are safe to do so. Next slide. So from a worker guidance point of view, specific to the workers, so knowing those warning signs, be aware of how it feels, what could happen and the impact to working in hot environments. Make sure you promptly report any discomfort or early symptoms to your supervisor or your manager. Drink plenty of water throughout the day, even if you're not thirsty. Looking at about 250 mils or 1 cup of cool water about every 20 minutes. And avoiding, caffeine as much as we all love a coffee and a tea in the morning or an energy drink. It's best to avoid those when working in hot environments. Sweet beverages can impact it, and alcohol, kind of a, shouldn't really be drinking at work, but if you're at home and enjoying a drink afterwards, know that that can also impact. Healthy diet, exercise is important, and as I mentioned, make sure you are physically fit to work in hot environments. Okay, so we have our discussion now. So between the three of us, we have a few questions that we hope to get your engagement on. And feel free to, I think our moderator is going to open up your mic so you'll be able to speak and be called upon. We've got plenty of time to go through this, and we're looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts. So Kimberly, I think you're with our first question.
Thanks, Emma. So yeah, John, thanks, Jason. I had John on my brain because I responded to your climatization comment as well. And yes, Bern, it is always difficult in our field of occupational hygiene, isn't it, to obvious medical differences and people differences and lots of differences for all of it, protective equipment, respirators, menopause, body systems, all of it. But yeah, thank you for both of you for the acclimatization points. And we've heard that acclimatization period can be even longer, sometimes even 14 days. So it's difficult to pin down. But what we're interested in mostly is you. So we hope that we haven't overwhelmed you with our smattering of tools and help that you currently use. So feel very welcome now to see which tools that you use in the workplace that you could share with us, and we could actually add it to our handout that we're providing to others after our session. So what heat stress tools do you use in the workplace? Do you have any others to provide? Emma, over to you.
Oh, no, Kimberly, I was just going to say one other thing. I am seeing again a few questions. Whatever we don't answer, we'll do our best to maybe take some of them away as well, and we can provide a follow-up if we're not able to answer any of the technical questions that are being posted, if that's okay with you, Kimberly and Kate.
Yes.
Thanks,
Okay.
Emma. Yeah, because we're kind of more interested to hear from you folks right now. Again, we're not being the expertise here. We're sharing works for solutions. So yeah. Any heat stress tools that people want to share that they're using that are effective for you? Lisa.
Yeah, maybe Thomas is on the line. He did put something in the chat.
Great.
Okay.
The Adelaide Initiative in Central America with sugarcane workers. If you want to speak to that, and the La Isla Network, which is fantastic and directly involved, and he's put that contact in the chat. Tom, if you want to unmute, you're welcome to, and anyone else is free to unmute. I noticed that there are some questions, and this is really right now focused on sharing tools. So we'll hold off some of those more technical questions, which were discussed in some of the other webinars, and maybe hold them off or cut to them at the end if we can.
And I see we have some of our other webinar participants here, so this big panel could work for that as well. So yeah.
There is a question, and I don't know if anybody in the on the chat about the accuracy of the AIHA app compared to standard WHT device. If anybody is familiar with that.
Oh, Don, you're muted, Don. Yeah,
You
you're on
can't
mute.
unmute. Yeah,
Oh, he can't.
you'll have to unmute yourself. Yeah, participants
Jason,
should be able to unmute.
just making sure Jason has enabled the.
Oh, you know what? I think it was, I enabled it and then it got disabled. Now
There
you
you
can
go.
unmute yourself.
There you go.
Okay, there you go, Tom. You can now
Welcome, welcome.
Okay, can you hear me now? Which it sounds like. Just so you know, we are currently the Thermal Stress Working Group and Corey Stringer. We are validating the app. And I will tell you initially, we are doing the study where we're looking at a WBGT compared to the app, and the results are very positive. We will be publishing that, and Dr. Margaret Morrissey's leading that, and that will be out there. But right now, it's a question we've had, and it's been very positive with the early research. By that, I mean, if anything, the app is maybe 1 degree over what the WBGT reading is giving us. So if anything, the app's a little bit more conservative and protective. So I just wanted to say that is in the plans, and we'll obviously keep you updated just to let you all know.
That's wonderful, Don. I really appreciate that. And I also want to share that we get these questions a lot, and with our silica control tool as well, and the heat stress calculator. And I think the important part is to be more conservative and to be doing something. We need to do something. So if these have to be best practice tools, they do, but this is about people. This is about workers, and I appreciate I very, very much appreciate, the technical pieces, but as my friend Kevin Hedges says, isn't it, Kevin? I don't know if you're here. Perfection is the enemy of good. So
there is a question about whether the app is free, and maybe you can answer that. I know the answer, but I think I know the answer, Don.
Yes, we've only provided today free and available resources. And Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what we're trying to do.
We just gave a presentation, Gabrielle Brewer from KSI, myself, and Linda RRN, and it is very much available in the App Store. Type in AIHA, and I'll say it phonetically: Alpha Indigo Hotel Alpha, or American Industrial Hygiene Association. Just put those initials in, it will pop right back up. It's downloadable, it's free. And here's the greatest thing that we've designed into it. We want feedback, just exactly what you were saying. We don't want it to be a one and done. And I think most of us realize the NIOSH OSHA app was great. It used heat strain index, and we know there's some limitations there. This app we want to constantly develop and make better. And we're even looking at how we can tie it in with some other externals. So please download it, use it, give us feedback. That's how we all get better.
Thank you.
Just one teeny comment off of Kimberly. Like 99% of them are available for free. Our publication has a small fee associated to it, but other than that, everything else is free. I didn't want to lead anybody astray.
Thanks. And we're really throwing you guys for a loop here today, I see, because there are a lot of questions in the chat. And we're not really moderating that, and it's about discussing, sharing, info sharing, discussing. So yeah, hopefully
we could also say, like, we touched on a few of them. Were you familiar with any of them that we quickly mentioned, or is there something in your country that you use or have come across that that you might wish to share? And I think there was a hand raised.
There's a hand up.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Kevin Renton has his hand up, so we'll go to Kevin.
Hi, good afternoon. Freezing here. It's hard to think of it being hot. But I was just trying to understand exactly what you mean by a tool, because I thought, well, a tool is my WBGT index, and I go out and see what it is and then make recommendations and see whether people understand what's going on, try to teach them. But I think you mean by a tool something else that gives you information or about
Oh,
how long you can be under the sun, or what exactly do you mean? I'm sorry, I
Sure.
may have missed it in your
no,
talk.
No
not at
worries,
all.
Kevin.
Great
Not at
point.
all. Good point. Excellent point.
Thanks.
Yeah, again, I hope you haven't missed that we aren't doing a technical presentation. Yes, by what we do mean is how do you help workers, and Addie, and these are in your toolkit as advisors and health and safety committees, or out in the field in various workplaces. What resources, what training materials, what controls, how can you help is really where we're increasing the health of the practitioner's toolkit. So yeah, we're not as technical as that, but very good point.
And
So then it would be like a decision tree where you would see something suspicious, then ask more questions, or how would the tool that you're thinking about work actually in
So
practice?
but this is a wonderful example of the different meaning of different words in different countries. And we would refer to some of these things collectively as a tool. And that could be a physical tool, like a measurement, or it could be a communication tool, or it could be a guidance document that you use to share information. So thank you for bringing that to light. That's a great point for us to keep in mind of how we present things moving forward as well. So essentially we're looking for, if we were to break it down in your organization, if you have workers who work in hot environments, how do you know that? And then what do you do to help keep them safe, whether that be through a heat monitor or through worker checklists or things like that. So essentially the resources. But great point. And
So
if we could always come back to this question and let you guys percolate on it. And then again, part of it was just to hear from the floor. We wanted this to be more of a discussion than just being talked at for a good hour and a
yeah.
half. So
So okay,
Kevin,
so
you
now
can get
I understand now
oh,
what you're
okay.
saying.
we
So
Okay, thanks.
it would compare well with our mining people. I don't know if there's somebody on the group who's on the call who's familiar with the mining thing, but they have a step test and they measure heart rates, and they've worked out the formula that says if your heart rate goes above a certain amount, then you haven't made it, and then you've got to
right.
try again.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're talking. Yeah, sorry, I'm just good because we have another hand up, but we are talking about sort of resources and information that's available and
Okay.
guidance. So yeah, so we will definitely have another session at some other point. We haven't coordinated it yet. Well, we'll talk about more technical sort of interventions and tools, literally tools. Physical tools that you can you can use. So Kevin, I'm gonna you have your hand up, and there's several great comments in the chat, and I encourage everybody to have a look at the chat. But Kevin Hedges has his hand up. So Kevin.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to Kevin Renton's question about tools, and I was going to use the OHCOW Humidex calculator as a tool, and I just kind of want to promote that too.
Okay.
If you think of measuring WBGT, Kevin, it's a kind of a sophisticated piece of equipment. Not everybody has access to it. So if you measure Humidex, you measure wet bulb and dry bulb, which are available at any kind of hardware shop, right? And then you can put those numbers into this calculator, and then you get a heat control plan, a simple plan that you can put on the wall workers can look at, and it's kind of puts it in the hands of generalists. So that's kind of what we mean by a tool. I don't know if that helps at all.
Thank you.
Yes,
There-
that's very helpful, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good to hear your voice again. Glad that you're well.
Thanks, both Kevins.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a great comment and question by Roland. And Roland, if you're on the line and can unmute, I invite you to do that. But how to
We do
communicate?
have 5 more questions to get through too,
But-
right? We
Okay.
don't want to.
Sorry.
Kimberly,
One more.
Roland's got a good,
Yeah,
Perfect.
mixed language.
Yeah.
In mixed language workplaces, you know, some of the slides are busy, he's saying, but just sort of advice on how to communicate in mixed language workplaces.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
So, Lisa, no doubt, a ton load of technical information, a ton load of documentation. It's a very, very old subject, and so a lot has been written. And so the question is, how does one reach a lot of the people in the fields and even in the factories that will be effective? You know, the technical documentation is amazing, but how does one convert that so the average worker on the floor can play, can participate? And a couple of people mentioned the use of cartoons, and as you know, in some cultures, that is far more effective than the written language. Flow diagrams, again, cartoon-like flow diagrams, are also very effective. So there's a lot on the technical side. There's a ton of well-written documents. How does one get it to people who are being impacted? And the last line I mentioned, it's only going to get worse. So we have to reach employees seriously where they can take some control of their protection.
thank you. So Roland, you have keenly observed our entire purpose. So what you're talking about is science translation, knowledge translation. And what we have tried to showcase through our narrative today is how that happened. It happened with engaging workers. It happened with providing infographics providing simple and stop the madness with the technical. We need the background. The key is the knowledge mobilization, the knowledge translation. And I think we have illustrated that today and provided, not only illustrated it with the narrative, but provided you places to go to get those for free. So we need more of it. Thank you for that comment.
I agree with that. And just a last comment. In North America, in the Western world, we have health and safety committees, joint health and safety committees. In many of the developing world and underdeveloped world, they don't have those policies where you have joint committees. So invariably, how does employees play in an environment where they have a say and that, in fact, they have a human right for information and for management in a way to comply? In some environments, management is still domineering and may not get involved at that level. That's all for now. Thanks very much, Lisa.
next question. Should we go to our,
Do you want to move the slides, or are you looking for another
Yes.
hand?
Perfect.
This is very similar, so don't worry, it will still get you. Yeah.
Exactly. And just to hop in with what Roland was saying, a big job that I do is that science translation piece. So again, figuring out who your audience is and what's the most important to them as well. So when you do have that information from a technical piece, how can you spin the narrative so it helps fit their story is a big thing I like to remember when I, for example, take a report and now I'm turning that into an infographic for a worker. And also too, plain languaging it is extremely important. And if you have a word that you're using that, again, let's say your sister or a brother, your mom wouldn't understand, to really explain that word, whether that is using visuals as you mentioned, or a different word or a synonym, and just being able to make it accessible for any type of reader as well as their reading level as well, which is always important.
Thank you.
And if I
And-
could, if I could just chime in also, same principles at CCOHS. Like our whole mandate is to make sure that we can get information to workers, and employers to help advance workplace health and safety, and taking complex subjects and making it digestible and easy to understand. And it's not about dumbing it down. Plain language isn't dumbing it down. It's about making it accessible. And whether that be through written word or through a podcast or through infographic or a poster, it's about meeting people where they're at as well. So there is an element of knowing your workers and finding the different resources. And as Kate, Kimberly, and I hopefully have illustrated, is that, and Roland, you alluded to it, it's an old topic. It's a very technical topic, but we've shown many different ways to address it, whether it be through the checklist or a poster, through an infographic or a toolkit. So hopefully that helps. But Kate, I know you've got the second question to get us going. So
Yes, and just to pivot, still similar, but does anybody have any tips or tricks that they would like to share to help mitigate heat stress? I do see Nico has their hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, no, what we developed in South Africa a project. We had a project with the Mine Health and Safety Council where we actually developed a board game. So for heat stress, to illustrate to the mine workers how to manage their heat stress. That is now from the start when they actually attend to the clinic. And we actually illustrated on a board game the whole process, going to the clinic, going underground, and then everything they have to experience there. And we used cards also with specific questions, on each section, and then in 3 different languages that's familiar in South Africa by the mining community. I'm actually looking, because we had a short video on that that's loaded on YouTube. So I try to find that link now. So as soon as I find it, I will share it in a chat also. So then you can actually go and have a look at that board game that we developed. We did test it with the mine workers, and it was like there's penalties also. And they enjoyed it a lot, and they work in teams. And then who's going to get the most money at the end of the day, what we call mullah. And it was so interactive, and everybody participated in that. So I will see if I get that link, and then I can quickly share it with the group then. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you for sharing. It's amazing.
that's exactly what we're looking for.
Yes.
Should we go on to the next?
Sure.
We're at time, but I want to
we at
make sure
time?
we get. Are we at
Didn't we?
time?
Are we at time? Lisa, are we at time? But you're on mute.
You're on mute.
But that's
My
okay.
apologies. We are at noon and there is
Oh.
a hand raised, so it is entirely up to you how you'd like to do this.
Let's show the other discussion questions because they're important, and try to spend a couple of minutes responding to them. Is that okay? Is that okay with people, or what do you want, Emma? I see a difference of opinion.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
There's a lot of great comments in the chat, and I just I am going to say I'm going to save the chat, and the community will have that information, and hopefully we can sort of sift through it and come back at another time and talk about some of the great stuff in the chat. So
because maybe we'll go to the one question that is, what else would you like to learn about?
Yes, that's important.
So over to you. If you want to take a couple of minutes to just throw in the chat, what are some of the other topics? Because as Lisa mentioned, this is a working group, and Kate, Kimberly, and I are members of that working group, and we'd like to know more. So if you want to be putting those in, and then also maybe be thinking about the last question, Kate, Kimberly, if you're okay with me going to that.
Keep going.
Because it was alluded to, But I think we'd be amiss to not talk about the climate change. And as Roland said, it's not going away. And so this intersectionality of the climate change, mental health, and eco-anxiety, and people are being impacted on a different level. It's not just about being hot, it's also people worrying about being hot and what's happening. And you may have workers in your workplace that are quite anxious about this. And how are you supporting them? And what type of culture are you creating to create space to allow workers to speak up, to talk about this area? So it's kind of a question, it's kind of planting it for you guys to be thinking about, but it's not just about it's hot out and we need to put those controls in place like shade and whatnot, but it's how do we protect mental health around this as well, because it's not going away. And we kind of want to leave that with you. So if there are any insights or thoughts people want to be putting in the chat before we close it off, please, by all means. I think maybe there's an opportunity that we could try and synthesize this and we could send that out along with the handout. We'll figure that out, but yeah.
We're not going to get to everything today. I just want to
No.
say that there are some wonderful comments about all sorts of things like clothing and humidity and climate change. And we've discussed all of these, putting on these webinars that will focus on this. And a lot of this was talked by Tom Gassert, who's on the call right now. So I encourage others to look at the YouTube, at WHWB's YouTube. We haven't covered everything, and also our website, whwb.org. And that information is there, but we are talking about getting to other ones, and we'll hold them in the winter as well, because I see a lot of people from the global south. So thank you.
And if you just, Jason, if you want to just advance maybe, Lisa alluded to the workplace health without borders, again, planning, knowing the warning signs, using the hierarchy, and then just closing it off. If there were any, if you want to go to the next slide, and if there were any other questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us, and we will take a look at the questions that were posed, and we can see what we can do to answer those either through CCOHS's safety info line. The tech specialist team can prepare some responses, and Kimberly and Kate with your tech specialists as well. So we'll do our best.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. People are continuing to put some great things in the chat. And I think, yeah, definitely a session. We've talked about a session on climate change and all the aspects of climate change and heat, increasing heat and other aspects of climate change and climate impacts on health and workers in particular is an important area. All right, I think.
Thank you.
With that, Kim, Emma, Kate, if there's anything else you want to add, if not, we'll conclude the session. And thanks, everyone. We will definitely take your chat, and I encourage everybody to have a look at the chat. I'll stay online for another few minutes so people can take a look.
And we hope we didn't. We really been finding at our committee level that we were looking for more interaction. This is such a broad group. The GOSH Coalition and the Workplace Health Without Borders. It's about how we're sharing and networking and reaching. We have provided a lot, but we thought focusing on hearing from you in a discussionary piece and more interactive was where we wanted to go, and show you how, with a foundation, to build your toolkit. Sorry, Kevin, or your resource kit, I should say. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you all. I'm going to leave my my contact info in the chat. And if anyone, so many of you have some amazing expertise and information to share. If you'd like to participate on the HEAT working group, we have not met this summer just because of a lot of other issues, but we will be meeting shortly, hopefully by the end of August. And if you would like to participate, please join us. So there's my email address. Just email me, please.